Hi, and welcome to episode 5 of my tutorial playthrough. So, as we've left off with the last episode with a nice smelter array, this topic will now follow us for another episode at least. So, going to deconstruct this little starter area here already, because we don't need this anymore. With the last episode, we set up a proper belt, which provides this little facility with 15 units of iron plates, which is really more than enough for them to work out quite decently. So the only real problem there will be that the inputs of my little science array here are collapsing then, but well, I'll have to figure out something, I guess. But overall, I don't want to have these miners anymore at this spot because they are not really useful for me anymore. So this way. Okay, we're not needing these at all, huh? Okay. Let's pick them up. Unnecessary energy poles are something I don't like too much. Let's copy that guy, and there we go. Alright, so now I'll need some place where this guy here will take his iron plates for the production of the gear wheels. Well, I'll call this overkill, but well, you know what they say, there's no kill like overkill. For the remainder of the time, we're having the starter base as it is. I'm going to keep this connection here just alive. I mean, it doesn't need too many iron plates at all, so I'll just connect it like this, and a part of these iron plates will now flow up here and provide this little iron gear wheel machine with the necessary input. Okay, but that's pretty much all we're going to do here. I wanted to get rid of the miners so I can access the rest of this patch better later. Okay, but for the next topic, we're going to make the same thing with copper as we did the last episode with iron. So we're going to set up another 48 smelters, but for this episode I felt like I'm going to do a little bit of a less demanding design, and I just noticed that I'm having a, there you have it, the first flaw in my design. So we're going to need something like this. I'm going to drop the power pole like that, and there we go. So with a compact design like this, it's not really good for the small power poles, but well, it's better than nothing, you know. So for the copper mining, we're going with a similar way as with the iron mining. So we're going to need 30 miners on the copper patch, and due to that, this belt has to be relocated now. Going to cut him here, and I'm going to relay that a little bit. Oh, not too far though, because I'll need that room later for the steam engines. So I'm going to roll with something like that, and we're going to reconnect this belt here like that, and I'll just cut it here. There we go. So the only downside will be the breakdown of this copper plate production array, but since I don't plan on this being a thing any much longer, we're absolutely in a good shape here. So I'm going to get rid of these guys here as well, since the same reasons as before do apply. I do not want the this patch being used by the starter base anymore. These times are just, we left them already. I've used a lot of setups where I let the plate production of my starter base work for a much longer time, and it's quite good. You can do that, no problem. But for this scenario, I wanted to tidy up things a lot earlier. So I'm going to reroute that stuff here, and our inventory is full, so I'm going to grab a few of these coals and drop them into the furnaces here, because the inserters will never fill the furnaces on their own unnecessarily. So if you ever happen to have too many materials, just go through your facility and hand feed them a little bit. You will get rid of your stuff in no time. So we did that, and next up will be the placement of the miners. So with this scenario here, I'm having a mixed patch where if you drop down the miners in this vicinity, you're getting an output of stone and copper at the same time. I actually picked this map on purpose because I wanted to show you guys how to sort ores later on as well. But for today, I'm going to try to avoid the mixing of this for now. We're just going to set up 30 miners with a clean copper output for today. So I'm keeping an eye on the on what's being output here. So that's that. So how many are there? We're having 8 of them. We're needing 30, so let's check if we can provide. So this is going to be one side of this. So how many are there already? It's 23, so we'll only need 7 more. So I think we can provide 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to nail down these guys over here. I'm having now more than 15 on this belt, but that's not really a problem, because at some point these miners will just run dry. And this way the belt will be oversaturated for a while. But, oh, I actually noticed that I don't want to do it like that. The belt will be oversaturated for a while, but that's not really an issue here. So I'll do something else, I think. So I'm going to let that start from here, let it run through here, and then let it run through here. So I'll have the ultimate output of the copper ore in another direction that I want more, that I prefer. So this way we're going to have the output in this direction. So there we are. I just noticed that I'm lacking a miner here, because this way now I'm having the full coverage of this patch on this side. So I'm going to relay that a little bit. There we go. Okay. So we're now up to set up something quite similar as we did before, but on the other side. So my plan was to smelter the iron on this side and the copper on the other side. So there's a big old forest in the way, though. Yeah, well, we'll manage. So I'm going to set up the copper smeltering array more into this direction. So we're going to chop some old trees. I mean, that's no problem. At some point, you'll always need a few more units of wood. So you'll ultimately always chop down some more trees in the early game. Later on, you can substitute wood pretty much everywhere. So you'll probably not be using much more wood in the later stages of the game. So that should be sufficient for now. Just want to chop a whole alley in this direction. Alright, there we go. So this will be our first copper smeltering array. So for this setup, it's going to be quite similar. We're going to put up 24 on each side. Oh, I shut down the power on my whole factory. Silly me. Let's reinstall that. Let's turn on the power before we do anything else. So I'm going to power up the miners here as well. And chances are I'm going to need to expand my my power plant before we can continue. I'm not sure about that. I'm going to see. So here, another narrow spot was created. So we're going to drop down some underground belts here. Always keep in mind that the underground belts should be placed in a manner that the miners can still output everywhere. So it's pretty important. Okay, so yeah, my power grid is really running desperate at this point, so I'm going to produce in the meantime a new set of boilers. So we're going to upgrade by 8 more steam engines. I think that's going to be where we're staying for a while. Until then, I'll just finish my furnace array. So we're now going to set up it a little bit differently. We're still going to go for 24 on each side, but in this case we're doing 12 columns, 12 sets of 2. So 2, 4, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So let's use the tool for a sec. Yeah, we're on 24. So I'm going to drop the belt down here already. Just a habit I grew accustomed to drop down the output before I do some mirroring like this, because in many a times I keep planning. I kept on planning a little bit too narrow. Okay, so now we're having this. Next up, I'm going to do something like we did before. I'm going to split up the ore input. We're setting up one on this side. I'll probably need to pick up some more belts now. Yeah, we're out of belts. Lovely peeping you're hearing, or beeping. Oh, well, too much German in my head. Is my dishwasher, so don't mind him. He's yelling that he's done. Alright, so let's do that on this side here as well. And there we go. And of course we now need some more fuel. So I'll just grab the coal belt I have up here, and I'll just split off something somewhere like here, and I'm going to do another belt down here. This I don't pay too much attention to ratios or enough miners up here, because the furnaces are actually quite efficient when it comes down to fuel usage. Like, we don't need many units of coal to get a smelter array running, so I'm not that conservative here, just in case you were wondering. Alright, so we're going to let it run over here. And then I'm running out of belts again. So I'm going to start with the inserters now, because we're going to wait until our other array has reproduced a few more belts. So always one inserter for picking up the ore and one inserter for dropping the plate. It's really nothing complicated we're doing here. So hopefully I'm having enough inserters for this stage of the build. There we go. So the main difference between this setup and the other one is you're needing a little bit more space, And in the end, you're having some alleys carved into the array where your power poles can reside in without needing to drop down underground belts. I'm going to compare these two setups when we're finished with that, so you can see the difference between them a little bit more precisely. Alright, now we're only going to need the long-handed ones for picking up the fuel. I mean, on this side there's no fuel to pick up for sure, but we're going to get there later. So there we go. Same for the other side, makes more sense here already. And I'm almost there with a big old amount of copper plates. So there we are. Let's pick up the materials we need. Look at this factory. Every connection is well fed. Everywhere we're having sated machines. Well, if machines can be sated, these would be. Alright, so let's drop down the coal belt over here. Next. And there we have it. The alternating belt. So now to power up this buddy here, we're going to drop down some more power poles, and it's going like this. So we're just running down here. Oops, why don't you connect there? And as you can see, nobody gets left behind. And we're having power everywhere. I just wanted to show you the comparison between these two setups to give a good example why building as compact as possible is not always the easiest way. We're having here a vast amount of underground belts supporting this machine because we wouldn't be getting power on these inserters otherwise. Here, the whole array needs a little bit more space in general, but you don't have the tedious work with the power pole distribution. So you can always decide on whether your map does give you the opportunities or not. So I'm researching automation 2 now as the next project. I'm going to explain that in a second. And we are going to need a place where copper plates get delivered. So this was my input mechanism for copper plates in the past. So this monster is not going to get continued here. So we're going to put into we're going to input the copper plates now in exactly the other direction because we're having an axis of there. So there we go. And I'll just reverse the direction here. And there we go. And I'm going to use this one here. And now everything keeps working as before. These guys don't need the copper plates at all. So this was actually the only connection point with copper plates for a whole network. Alright, so now we have an income of 15 plates of each type. I'm going to continue with this kind of setup until I have bigger power poles, but once we have the stronger power poles, we can continue with the other setup. So I'm going to stop researching now new elements. The only things I'm going to research is lab research speed and projectile damage. Because in this series I want to guide you guys through the new technologies as much as possible. So with the automation and logistics technologies being researched, I'm going to talk about these a little bit more in the close future, don't worry. But I wanted to let them stay like they are now. So now we're going to set up our expansion of the power array, because if you look here, we're not really satisfying the we are satisfying the network, but not much longer. If I would put up more stuff, we would be running dry quite soon. So we're just expanding that in a very easy and simple manner, just dropping down the power poles like that. And you might notice here that I'm doing quite the same setup as I did before. I'm using the a little gap here between the clusters of two to keep them connected. So now I'm having this amount of power. Sadly, you can't really look that up well, how much units of coal they'll need. The last time I tried to look it up, Helmod was really bad at that, but we're going to see. So I can only tell him how much steam we're going to have, but that's okay. We're consuming so we're consuming 16 times 30 steam, so that sums up to 480. Yeah, sure. So that's not really how it's working. So as you can see, this quantity megawatt. What the? Yeah, well, I'm going to calculate that another time to check out if this is satisfied or not. Until then, my favorite way of satisfying arrays like these is just to drop down miners until the belt is backing up. I know that's not really professional, but I personally feel like the readout of these things is pretty hard. So a boiler consumes 1.8 megawatt of fuel per second. So in a chunk of coal there are 4 megajoule. So I asked around a little bit, and you can roughly put megajoule and megawatt equal to each other. So you can assume that you're going to last a little bit around more than 2 seconds per unit of coal, and that makes it pretty hard to calculate that. But I'm going to see if I can tweak the Helmod a little bit deeper into that to show you what I'm talking about. So next thing here are steel plates. Steel plates are produced out of iron plates. So to produce a steel plate, you'll simply take 5 iron plates and put them into a furnace again. It's quite fascinating. And to achieve a fully fledged 15 unit belt of steel, we would need a production of 75 iron plates, ending up in 240 stone furnaces. So that won't happen. We're seeing here that this is the 5 times the amount, so we're going to divide that by 5, and you're going to see by utilizing an array like I built there, we're going to achieve a production of 3 steel plates per second. We will be needing 96 stone furnaces, and this is quite some crazy endeavor. We're also going to need 15 units of iron ore per second, so that's going to be another of these stories. So the iron patch here is really not that good for steel production, so I felt like I wanted to go for this bad boy over here and tap into the iron from this direction there. So we're going to pick up that stuff here. And I'll grab some more of the electric power poles. I'm out of wood at this point, so I should possibly chop up some more wood. So we're going to get rid of that little forest here to replenish the wood resources a little bit. And at this point, oh yeah, this is a very good spot to show you the problem we're having little by little. So as you might notice, we're going to need 30 miners again to achieve a good income for this production array. So let's see if we can achieve that. I'm not sure, but even if we will, it leads us to a point where we're going to use a different strategy. But I think I'm going to cover up that strategy during the next episode, though. So here we are. I'm only featuring 20 miners at this patch, so I have really no chance of satisfying the full array there. So we're only producing 10 units of iron ore per second on this one. So I'm going to change this one to an output of 2. So you see here now I have it adjusted to our needs, and that's all that's cool for now. Going to drop down the belts like this here, right away over to our base. It's going to be a longer transportation route, but that's okay. Sometimes you just have to transport things a longer way. We're going to get new tools to transport things on longer distances in the future, but for now these are the ways we're dealing with it. So next up is the need of power over there. So at the same time, while I'm running back to that array, I'm running over here and bringing some power poles. So I'm going to give you guys a little preview about what's going to happen next. So for today, I'm going to finish a smaller steel production array, fitting to the amount of iron ore I'm producing. But later in this series, I'm going to set up a distribution hub, which collects the overproduction of the iron ore in times where we're not needing it, because, well, right now you can't really see it, because I'm not having any radar panels yet, but we're going to get there. As you can see now, once I'm getting closer to that again, right now the whole iron here is backing up, and the miners are standing still and not working at all. So I'm going to set up a storage unit, a large storage unit, capable of storing large amounts of ore for me, where I'm going to put the overproduction into safe storage, which will then jump in as needed if we are producing larger amounts as anticipated, or needing larger amounts as anticipated. So this is I'm going to explain that a lot more in detail later on, but for now I just wanted to give you guys a little preview on that. So I just noticed that I don't want to go there. I was getting ahead of myself here. So since the copper smeltering is here, I'm going to smelt copper into this direction furthermore. I'm going to have a free spot for the iron here, for the steel plates here, and this place up here I'm going to designate for the iron smeltering. So everything is already pretty set. So we're going to produce this like that. It's pretty simple. We're going to get to a array where I'm going to duplicate what we have here. So since we're doing it in a smaller manner, I'm just dropping down 32, so 16 on each side. I'm trying to go a little bit more symmetrical over here, because I do like if systems are quite on the same height and such. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, 12, 14, and 16. All right. So I just keep checking on myself if everything is going all right. So, but we're not outputting that stuff upwards. We're going to output that stuff downwards. So we're going to repeat that now on the other side as well. You already know that one here. So I'm going to grab these guys, and while holding shift and left clicking, I'm going to put ghosts of these over here, just to make sure that I won't be over spamming the room I'm needing later. So because as soon as I have enough iron ore input, I want to expand this array, of course. So seeing these, I'm going to lead the belt through here. So this will end up in a fully packed belt one day. We're going to configure it like this for a second. So we're going to have a full belt of iron plates here. So going to set this everything up like this. Wait a sec. So these are the input lanes. We're going to go like this. Or no, this is too narrow. I'm going to leave one more space here. Again, I could build this one grid more narrow, but I don't want to, for some reasons I stated a while before. So we're going to split this off again to have two separated lines of ore. I really like to do this because I consider it a more efficient way of distributing your raw resources, and we're out of belts again. Well, being out of belts is a very, very common thing to do, to be in the early game. That's why I increased the stockpile amount to 400, because well, it does happen quite often at this point, doesn't it? So I'm stopping to build this kind of belt at this point, and there we are. So I'll just expand the coal line into this direction because, well, I already explained it a while ago. I'm not going to explain it another time during this series. So this one, though, I'll just let run through completely. We're going to use a little splitter over here to make sure we're going to have the materials we need to smelter. There we go. And possibly I'm going to expand that. I'm not sure if this will ever reach that point, but I'm not there. I'm not sure yet. So we're having coals right here and iron right there. So okay. So I hope I didn't do any mistakes here. Oh, it's not going to be completely symmetrical. No. Okay, whatever. Never was my plan in the first place. So we're going to drop them down like this. So, as a matter of fact, I think it would be actually a advantage to put them more narrow. So, many people are using blueprints at this point, but I wanted to not use blueprints because for me in this series it's very, very important to guide you through the thought process of setting up working arrays. And if I plop down finished blueprints everywhere, that's not much of an explanation why things work, how they work. So it's just so you understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm going to change things up a little bit because yeah, well, it's not really necessary, but I do suffer from OCD sometimes, and this game is really perfect for people like me. Alright, there we go. So this way I'll have only a problem with that, but I can also get rid of this here as well. So we're starting to do really weird things here, but I don't mind. So the thing here is I'll need a spot where, there we go. I can't afford that these belts are mixing each other, but at the same time I need belts that are reaching up to these squares here to achieve a proper input. It's not that as important as I make it look like right now. Okay, so now we're having a pretty common scenario. We're now inputting steel plates, iron plates on the yellow inserters, and putting fuel on the red inserters. And outputting steel on the other side. So there we go. This is going to be our steel output one day. So let's drop that down. And with this being done, or basic smeltering endeavors are done for this series. Well, not for this series. No, we're done with the tutorial part about the smelters. So at this point, you should have a pretty solid idea of how these things are working and what you can or cannot do. And from this point on, I think I'm going to build these things just more as they are necessary, or even build them off camera. I haven't decided yet. So I just wanted to include a steel smelter array out of the simple reason that it works a little bit different, and it's a very important recipe for the vanilla game. So we're just needing the fuel input sources here. And this little design doesn't look like much, but it is quite nifty due to the double usage of the fuel line here, and thus we're pretty efficient here overall. But apart from that, it's not really something special. Steel is just a very necessary material for a lot of tier 2 production chains, and due to that, steel is a unavoidable resource later in the game. What is happening here? No! Are you kidding me? Are you really telling me I'm not reaching this guy here? Okay. So as you see, there are still problems, but we're going to fix them. So I think the easiest way to fix this problem will be this. Alright. So chances are the same problem will apply on this side, so I preemptively went there, and we're now just connecting them with power, and everything will work out just fine. Okay. Next section are the steel plants, and from here on we're not having any troubles anymore. Steel is a very important resource, now I catched my thought again, for the production of the better electric poles, which are all needing steel plates. And better electric poles make everything here, you see here, a lot easier. And yeah, so here the first units are getting produced, you see. And yeah, in the finished process, we would be having this setup continued down until down here. If we look it up now in the calculator, we're having well, okay, I'll have to wait until these guys are all having their resources. Right now the recipes are not being shown correctly, because not every smelter is working. But say, do they work with basic inserters quick enough? Yes, they do. Alright, good. So now we have it. I'm actually overproducing. Wait a sec. Oh, of course I didn't. Yeah, kept explaining and explaining and explaining, and of course we have to do more of them. This is only 16. We have to mirror this on the other side as well, of course, too. You already thought about that. I just got jumbled in my brain. I'm pretty sure you saw what I missed there on your own. And yeah, we're just going to expand that, and the finished one would be, of course, having the same thing over here. So we would be splitting the amount of the iron plates again, like something like this. Of course. So there would be the finished array would be looking something like this. So there we are. And good thing I didn't stop the coal line, because in this scenario, of course, we're going to need another input lane. But yeah, I'm just going to finish this off camera. I don't think it's necessary to explain more here. I think everything explained itself quite well. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to drop me a comment down below if there's anything you want to know more about. I would deeply appreciate any support from your side, be that a like on this video, a share of this video, or even a subscription to my channel. You do whatever feels good for you. I hope you come back for the next episode, when we're going to manage the main bus and the main distribution of this factory, where we're starting to design the bigger picture of this whole thing. So yeah, see you guys next time. Goodbye.